for leaders and owners listening, I would say we're able to bring a large amount of entry-level folks in because we've poured into people like Jack and Dakota. It's taken them 6 or 7 years to get to where they're at. We've been very intentional about investing in training for these guys and developing these guys and them having older mentors, and they can add value, because if you're just spending all your time coaching and babysitting and watching over the new guys and you're not getting work out the door, then that's not going to work either. Yeah. So there is a balance there, but it's like there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago and the second best time is today. So, if you don't have a Dakota and Jack, then you got to start now. Yeah. And you got to develop that person and pour into them so that, down the road that they can then do that.
Welcome to Making Sparks, the podcast where we ignite your passion for metal fabrication and fuel your business success. Join industry leaders and dive deep into the world of metalworking. From business insights to tips of the trade, Making Sparks is your forge of knowledge. During each episode, discover success stories, innovative solutions, and expert interviews that light the path to business growth. Subscribe today and grow and improve your company, and let's make sparks fly together.
Welcome back to Making Sparks. I'm Casey Velker, sitting here with my co-host Matthew Nix, and today we got a special episode where we're sitting with a couple shop floor. Gosh dang it! I knew I was gonna mess that up.
You can probably just pick up there, can't you?
We're sitting here with a couple shop floor frontline leaders. We're gonna talk about their stories from right out of high school when they joined the metal fabrication industry to where they're at now. So I'll let Matthew kind of introduce them.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Really excited to have these two guys with us today. So these gentlemen actually work at Nix Industrial. It's our legacy business that we own and operate. And these two gentlemen here essentially been with us since school. I'll let them tell their story. But yeah, started out basically entry level guys on the shop floor, and now they've worked their way up into a leadership role. Very, very important. Special leadership roles. So I'll kick it over to these guys. We've got Jack Henry Hagan here with us today, and Jack Henry is his first name. It's a cool Southern thing, right?
Yeah, it is. I actually got 4 names. My parents tried to make it hard on me growing up as a kid.
I always preface that with people. See his shirt even says Jack Henry, not just Jack.
Yeah.
So Jack Henry Hagan and Dakota Hunt with us here today. So thanks for being with us, guys.
Thanks for having you.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing I think we wanted to talk about was kind of them, just let them kind of tell their story. So I'm just going to look at both of you and decide who I want to. Dakota, you go first.
You want to do your dad joke first? We can break
fine.
The ice
all
right,
right,
a little
Dakota,
bit.
Before you get to have the mic on you, I get to tell my dad joke, which is my favorite part of the whole episode. So why are there Pop-Tarts but no Mom-Tarts? Because of the patriarchy.
That one's gonna get boozed.
Yeah.
Maybe a slow golf clap at the best.
Okay, fine.
All right, better luck next time.
All right, well, back at it. Dakota, do you just want to kind of talk about how you started with Nix, or even how you decided to get into the metal trades industries, and then kind of your little journey?
Yeah, I just right in my senior year of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was more of, I had no plans. And I actually got talked into taking a welding class. And, I only had one welding class before I graduated, but I ended up knowing the shop foreman at Nix Industrials. And I ended up getting an internship while I was going to go to college for welding. And I started working the summertime at Nix before I went to college. And then I was part-time for a while I went to college for welding. And then Matthew loves this, but I quit because I thought I wanted to do something else. And, I get a lot of flack for this, but I think it really helped me out because I went to college for something else for a while and didn't work at Nix. I actually went for college for law enforcement, but it really, in that period of time, I found that I really loved fabrication. I loved working with metal. Honestly, I think I love my job more than I ever have now because I have that experience of leaving and trying something else. And then I came back. Matthew actually graciously hired me back. And I've worked here for 6 years. I started as a welder, went to more fabricating, and then I was a senior fabricator, more experienced fabricator, and then now I'm transitioning into a quality coordinator and logistics coordinator role. But that's my career.
But a couple points I want to make there. First, on the position you're in now, I want to clarify for the listeners that he will be responsible for all the shop floor quality and the outbound transportation of the product across a site that's going to have over 20 team members now. So 60,000 square foot site with over 20 team members, multi-million-dollar operation. So it's a very significant role that Dakota is going to be moving into. So I just wanted to sort of clarify what that role is. And then also he says he got flack about leaving, and he did, but I also want to clarify it was in a loving, teasing way.
Yeah.
And he knows that. And I think the point to be made for all the other fabrication shop owners and listeners out there is that Dakota left the right way first and foremost, but we treated him the right way. We have a big saying in our organization: treat people on the last day the way you would treat them on the first day. And I think if someone's leaving the right way and you treat them with dignity and respect and wish them the best, they may end up coming back. And if they do come back, they do have a higher level of respect, maybe for the trade, but also for the organization. And sometimes those are your best team members, the folks that have gone somewhere else and saw that maybe the grass isn't greener, and they can be great advocates for the culture back inside your organization. And he wanted to look into a totally different career path, law enforcement, and we supported that, and ultimately he decided that he wanted to come back. So just wanted to make sure we make that point too.
I didn't know. I don't think I knew that you left and then came back. So
How long were you gone? A couple years?
No, I think I was gone a year.
Yeah, I'd like to tease him and tell him that was his lapse of judgment period. But no, it really wasn't. I mean, you gotta figure it out. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would love it as much. I'd always have that in the back of my mind, like, am I really doing what I want to do, or is there something else? But now I know, this is what I want to put all my effort and time into.
Yeah, that's good.
I had more to talk about that, but I want to go ahead and let Jack Henry talk a little bit because he's just sitting over there patiently. So, so Jack Henry, same question to you. Kind of give us a little background of like why you or how you got into this kind of industry, whether it was through a high school program or whatever, and then kind of your little journey to where you're at now.
Well, I grew up around the family farm. My uncle, I've worked with him. My granddad, they were 80-year-long dairy farm, tobacco farm, row crop, cattle. And my uncle, he had an old Lincoln tombstone welder and cutting torch and stuff like that. And growing up, he would use that around the shop, and I would just watch him. And I think, well, that's pretty cool. You can fuse two pieces of metal together, and you can fix about anything you need to that's broke or anything like that. And I don't know, I was probably about 12, 13 years old. He gave me a cutting torch, and he told me to go cut up an old hay ring. And, something like that, it doesn't really matter. It's being scrap, so I could just play around with it, have fun, stuff like that. So I did it, and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I like this. But I never really knew at that point that that's what I was going to make my career path. It was just an experience I had. And so I got to high school, and I went to a private Catholic school. And nothing against them, it was a great school, but they didn't really push trade too hard. They were more 4-year university, college, something like that. And I knew from a very young age that I was not going to be sit behind a desk kind of person. I like working with my hands and stuff like that. I went to tech school, and I just did a 3-semester welding class and got certified there. And even at that point, like halfway through, I kind of questioned myself. I was like, am I sure this is really what I want to do? I wanted to do a trade, but it got to the last semester, and I was like, that's when it clicked for me. So I went to work for a very, very small fab shop, and the lady that ran it, she's a family friend. And I could be honest with her, she could be honest with me, and she came to me one day. She's like, look, we're too small and you have way too much potential in you. I can see that. And I recommend you checking out this place. And I was like, okay. And she said it's called Nick's. So I looked into it, and here I am. And I've been here for 6 years now. I started out as a welder, and I welded for probably a year and a half-ish. And then I went into fabricating and fabricated for 4-5 years. And then about a year ago, I went into quality control lead.
Hey everyone, it's Sparks of Knowledge time. I'm Adam Schmidt with ProFab Alliance, and today we're going to be talking about CRMs. I would venture to say that not many fabrication shops or even machine shops out there are using a CRM system. So a CRM is a customer resource management. Compare it to your material out in the shop. You know, how much easier is it if you have an inventory management system? Well, a CRM does the exact same thing with your customers. So to start out, you need to develop your expectations. What type of data do you want to get out of your CRM? You may just want to know, what's my weekly sales volume? And let me know, when I need to follow up with this customer. So many shops out there, they'll get a request for a quote, they'll provide an estimate, send it to the customer, and then that's it. 6 months down the road, that customer calls and say, hey, I need this done. If you have a CRM, you can prompt yourself, hey, remind me to follow up with this customer in about, let's say, 2 months. The last thing I would want to say is just trust it. We put in that 2-month due date. Just forget it, Trust the CRM. It's going to remind you. And overall, that's going to alleviate a lot of the anxieties and stress of everything that you're trying to carry on your shoulders. So let the CRM do what it does best.
So both of these guys are in quality control lead, and Jack's responsible for our structural fabrication location, and Dakota is our custom fabrication location. They're about an hour apart from each other, just to give the listeners perspective. Completely independent shops in a sense of operations. The shop that Jack Henry is responsible for quality for, we're putting out over 100 tons of structural steel a week. That's 2 or 3 semi-loads a week, just to give people perspective. And we're building buildings. It's new construction. It's a lot of healthcare, a lot of higher education, municipality work, very big, critical structural jobs. And Jack is responsible for making sure every part that goes out is done per the print, and so is Dakota. But it's high stakes, what these young men are doing. So it's pretty incredible. That's awesome. One thing that you mentioned that I want to make sure we hit on, you said, as you were sort of discerning your path, you said, I knew I wasn't going to be someone that sits behind a desk every day. And there's a lot of conversation going on right now, really nationwide, about trades, and Mike Rowe's doing a lot of great work on it with all of his stuff. But there's a resurgence in the conversation, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's a perfect point to reiterate it, that most of the conversation that I hear about 4-year degree versus trades surrounds the financial aspect of the conversation, which is also important, meaning that you don't have to take on college debt. Meanwhile, instead of being out of the workforce for 4 years racking up debt, you're actually making money. And if you compound that and extrapolate that out over your lifetime, it's a significant dollar amount. And then, in addition to that, you can make a really good wage in a trade, as opposed to, what you can make it in a 4-year degree, unless, you're in a specialty thing like doctor and lawyer, et cetera. So people talk about that, but what they don't talk about is the fulfillment aspect of it. That if that's not who you are, if that's not, I am a firm believer that God made all of us with unique abilities and interests and things. And, if that's not your passion and your interest, it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're not going to be happy. And so I think that's the part of the equation we got to make sure we think about. Like Jack said, I knew I wasn't meant to sit behind a desk, and you probably could have done other things other than weld and been happy, but the trades was a good career path for you because you find fulfillment in what you're doing. So I just thought that was a good point to reiterate.
Hands-on, involvement with anything is, that's how I enjoy. I can't just type and shit like that.
Yeah. And you don't have to. People need to understand that just because you wear work boots every day doesn't mean you have some unimportant job. I mean, Jack is responsible for millions and millions of dollars of structural steel fabrication. That there's a financial risk of it not being right, and there's also a tremendous safety risk. And just like Dakota, we build at our custom shop, we build a lot of structures and platforms and safety products that other factories, people's lives depend on what we do. And so, it's like, it's not unimportant just because you wear work boots to work every day. I think people need to understand that too. I mean, it can be a very rewarding and fulfilling and a sense of responsibility for what you do without sitting behind a desk.
Absolutely, yeah.
Both of you guys kind of have gotten to be a part of Nick's as they've grown a little bit. And again, our audience is fabrication leaders. Some of them maybe have aspirations to grow like Nick. Some of them may just be looking to hire their, first few employees, wide range. What are some things that you guys would say, like if someone's like, all right, we're going to start hiring or we're going to start growing fast, what are some things that you're like, as people on the shop floor that you would recommend leaders like just keep an eye on, like keep a thumb on, whether it's
Maybe do's and don'ts.
Yeah, do's and don'ts. Whether it's do with like quality or do with maybe it's equipment, like, or maybe it's the way they treat you guys. Or, when I'm asking whoever wants to go first. So
I'll go. Honestly, my advice would be to hire high school kids. I mean, they want to learn, and you can teach them right from the start the right way to do stuff. You can instill your culture in them, and also they're usually fun to work with. I work with a bunch of high school kids, and you can tell when they want to do the trade and when they don't. And when they don't, you help them figure something else out. You really just, if you put your time in those high school kids, they'll really.
I think he said something there. You said they're easy to train or whatever. I will say, like, even for my business, like the very first person I hired was right out of college, but it was like his first job. And what has worked really well is that I got to train him the way I do things, right? Yeah. Not that they have to do exactly the way I do, but like if you're a business and let's say you're the guy that's maybe getting out of the shop floor, and you need to have someone that you can trust, it might take a little bit of time to train, but yeah, like having someone that, for lack of a better word, hasn't been like spoiled or has been already corrupted by another training or business or something like that, that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that, but you also you certainly have to have experience too. Yeah. And so, yeah. I mean, I think, for leaders and owners listening, I would say we're able to bring a large amount of entry-level folks in because we've poured into people like Jack and Dakota. It's taken them 6 or 7 years to get to where they're at. We've been very intentional about investing in training for these guys and developing these guys and them having older mentors, so that now they're in a place to where, yeah, we can have 3 or 4 or 5 young guys in a shop floor, and they can add value, because if you're just spending all your time coaching and babysitting and watching over the new guys and you're not getting work out the door, then that's not going to work either. Yeah. So there is a balance there, but it's like there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago and the second best time is today. So, if you don't have a Dakota and Jack, then you got to start now. Yeah. And you got to develop that person and pour into them so that, down the road that they can then do that for the next person.
And that's a good point because, like for me and for anybody in this industry, you can go to school for welding, but you're not going to learn. I mean, what I learned in welding school is, minute to what you learn on the floor in the shop. I mean, it can get you into the door of a company, but what I'm saying is like, you can't expect somebody that's going to walk in the door and know everything. They're going to learn at your shop. They can get like some stepping stones to get there, how to strike an arc, how to run a bead, stuff like that. But you got to invest your time into these guys. And I mean, if they're worth anything, then they're going to stick around. They're going to be one of the best employees that you got.
It's something else on that. Like, it's hard to learn fabrication in college. You're not building big pieces. You got to really learn that on the job. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can give you a good fresh, start, but on the job training is beneficial more than I think college.
Yeah. So what are some other do's and don'ts that you guys can think of for other fabrication shop owners or leaders? in the context of growing and bringing, young talent into the organization?
I would say, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with growth. Growth is fantastic, but you can't grow too fast and not bring everything up evenly. I mean, I don't know if that really makes sense, but like if you're going to grow the company quick and fast and you're going to get big, you can't take shortcuts. Like, you got to start creating different new positions. You can't just keep the old 3 or 4 that you had. You got to look at the big picture now. You're growing. Now we need 3 or 4 new ones, and we got to come up with different ideas and solutions of how to become more efficient and, just how to have a better running facility.
How would you know or identify if you were growing too fast? What do you think that would look like? And also, for the record, there's there's been moments and times where we were going too fast. I mean, I tend to think we've got it corrected, but I mean, it does happen. But I'm just interested, from your perspective, what does that look like or feel like?
Well, I mean, honestly, I guess I would use my new position as an example. I mean, for the first 5 years, since 2018, whenever Nick's took over structural fabrication, we started out, like, whenever I started there, it was me and 3 other guys in the shop, and that was it, and we were not doing near the volume that we're doing now. Well, we started picking up high volume jobs, and we were, we did like Deaconess, the hospital, and that was a massive, massive job, and we still had the same, essentially, positions that we had whenever we were doing jobs that were much, much smaller.
Primarily meaning the shop foreman doubled as the quality lead.
Exactly.
Which is typical in a lot of shops. And it's not until recently that we've started splitting that. And you guys were actually the first time we did that. Mm-hmm. Jack, we did it in your shop first, but we split the foreman and the quality lead. Those are lateral roles. And so, the quality lead's not subordinate to the foreman. They're peers. They're lateral peers. The foreman's job is to get production out the door and to do it safely. And the quality lead's job, of course, is to make sure it's done right. And they're really the yin and the yang. One person should be pushing production. One person should be saying, whoa, 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 slow down. We got to get it right, and that yin and yang. So, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood that when he's talking about the roles being, the same or different, that was the biggest change, was splitting the foreman role up.
So I would say that that's whenever we made that switch. Whenever we were still doing, we had the same roles, but we were doing much more volume. We weren't keeping up with the leads that were needed in the shop. So we split, just like Matthew said, and then, now it's more spread out throughout the shop as far as roles and leadership and,
When you say things need to come up equally, I think that means you've got to have the talent and the key roles that you need to facilitate the growth. You also need the equipment and the assets to facilitate the growth, all those things.
And also kind of probably have a plan and know what you're going to need as you grow, right? I think that's one thing Nick's Industrial does really well, is they know years in advance when they're going to hire a certain person, or they're going to buy. Obviously, some of the equipment is so expensive, you need to know how you're going to finance it and all that kind of things. But
yeah, we do a 3-year plan, and then I would say, 80-90% accuracy to that plan at the end. But you have to be able to pivot and make changes as they come at you. But then out of the 3-year plan, we do an annual plan that's very dialed in. That would where we would be doing things like saying, this year we're going to split the foreman role into 2. That would have been part of the plan. And we work the plan and say, all right, we got to do step 1 first, then step 2, then step 3. And so, good example. That's a good example of that. Thanks for bringing that up, Casey.
You guys do a lot of maybe if you guys need to submit an idea for improvement, you guys have a form to do that, and different things like that. What does that mean to you guys to know that you guys are being heard that in that way? Does that make sense? Knowing, because I think that's a pretty cool thing that and a lot of times those ideas of improvement get implemented as long as whoever submits it or if the people that are responsible for it have the capabilities to implement it. hey, they get implemented. What's that mean to you that they listen to that?
Okay, so before you guys answer the question that Casey just posed to you, we're going to jump to the next episode here. Great conversation. So just to recap for everybody, we've got 2 frontline leadership team members. They've talked a little bit about their career path, starting out entry level, developing into quality leads, and they're going to talk more in the next episode about some do's and don'ts and some tips for other fabrication shop owners and leaders as they try to develop their own leadership team. And Casey, we've got a little call to action for our listeners, right?
Yeah. Don't forget to rate, review, refer. If you like this episode, rate it. If you don't like it, rate it, because that also will tell us that you didn't like it. Review it. Again, tell us what you really think about it. And then if you did like it, refer it to your friends.
Yep, share it.
Share it, yeah,
All right.
on social media.
Okay,
right?
we'll see you next episode.
On the internet.
Yep.
Okay, bye. No, that was a rough one on the close.